Yes, we have a question right over here. And then we'll go right back to the side of the room.
Hi. Jack, first I want to repeat the name of that book for me, and my question is, when you go for loans, what about co-signing? Should we try to avoid co-signing? Simple question, that's all.
One of my favorite
Actually, you know what?
subjects.
I'm going to reference that co-signing to D, because we've talked about this, and who should co-sign, and then we'll go to you. Okay, Jack, is that all right? Fine.
When you fill out that, let me just go back. 50% divorce rate in Massachusetts and in the country, although Massachusetts is a lower divorce rate than most other states. When you fill out that financial aid form, they ask for the parent, the custodial parent, spouse, to give out financial information. This is the step-parent oftentimes, okay? And oftentimes a step-parent is asked to co-sign a loan. I'm telling you not to do it. It's not a good idea to co-sign a loan unless you consider it a gift. Because once you co-sign a loan, whether it be the aunt, the grandmother, the stepfather, the stepmother, that in essence you have to in your mind consider it a gift. Because if the kid defaults on it, you're stuck with it. And I hear from listeners all of the time who've co-signed loans and the kid's dropped out of school. Kid doesn't want to go to school, or kid doesn't want to pay off the loan. So, you know, it's a real, it's a lifestyle decision you make. But as always, my answer is usually no, don't co-sign the loan, no matter how good the purpose is, simply because you have to look at your financial situation first. If you default on that loan also, you know, you may not be able to default, especially if you have a job. And they'll go after your Social Security as well if you think you're going to retire with it. But that's my opinion. You have to be extremely careful. I've seen mothers paying off motorcycles. They didn't want the kid to have the motorcycle in the first place, but the kid needed transportation, Mom. Just co-sign the loan. Co-sign the loan for the first apartment. We did that for both our kids because we didn't want them to live at home.
There are reasons, Jack. I'm sorry.
So
yes.
we weighed the odds. Let's say 1 year's worth of rent versus living at home. So we co-signed those, and they never defaulted on their rent. But it's a tough decision. Being a parent is a tough job, am I right? No instruction manual. None for college. None when the baby's little. None looking for school. The other thing is that our pride and joy, this is a commodity, and we want to sell them to the college to get the financial aid. It's a tough thing to do. It's a tough thing to do.
The book's name is Debt Free You, and it's by Zac Bissonnette, and he's been on a lot of the national and the local talk shows. And so if you Google Zac Bissonnette and Debt Free You, you can kind of get some maybe YouTube kinds of things where you can
get on Amazon.
Get some sense of what he had to say. But I really do think it was from a student, a UMASS student, by the way, wrote this book. And we didn't even know about it until all of a sudden we saw him on one of the national shows. And we were very impressed by it, though, because he did a terrific job of understanding how he, as a student, and that's what you said in the first place, the student's got to take some responsibility, how he, as a student, took responsibility for reducing the cost of his education.
Okay, we're going to find him for the next business breakfast, okay? Yes, Eileen.
It's important to remember that any federal student loans that your child takes do not require you to co-sign. Those loans are made only to the student, and they're only responsible for repaying, not the parent. And they're capped, so over their lifetime, they can only borrow so much. And the feds try and keep your maximums within a reasonable level so that the student's debt upon graduation does not overwhelm them. That's the goal. It's when you go beyond that. There's a federal loan for parents that they can borrow to help cover their family contribution. It does not require a co-signing by the student. It's strictly a loan to parents. Parents without good credit could get a co-signer on that loan if they wanted. The danger, I think, is when you go out into the private markets for additional loans. And now the student is borrowing and they're asking you to co-sign, because obviously the student doesn't have a job, doesn't have a credit rating, can't repay for 4 more years, so they want a co-signer. Now, to me, the question becomes, is it wise to attend that school if you have to borrow so much that the debt levels upon graduation for that student, with that co-signed loan even, are such that it's not a reasonable expectation to be able to repay? So for instance, if a student's going to graduate with the maximum federal loans after 4 years of undergraduate education and they're $23,000 in debt, and they're going to start out with a job that's $30,000, $35,000, $40,000, they can manage it. The feds have even plans for if a disaster happens and they need to have their repayments based on their current income. So the federal loans are, in my mind, safe loans for most people. But it's going beyond that. And if the student is going to then say, well, with these private loans, in total I'm going to be $85,000 in debt on graduation, and I want to be an elementary school teacher, I'm thinking maybe they need to look more broadly at other choices to see if there's a school that they can attend without that kind of debt for what they project their income would be on graduation.
Excellent. I didn't tell you that they're having a sumo wrestling demonstration upstairs. Yes, right over here.
I have two questions. The first one, what if the emergency happens and parents lose the job in the middle of the year when kid is already in college? And the second question, my daughter is considering going to community college for 2 years, but she is very, very hesitant if she will be able to get to a good university after that. Maybe it's a perception. I'd just like to know your opinion if that's a good strategy to get a degree.
First, contact your financial aid office immediately upon losing the job. Most institutions have an emergency fund set up just for that purpose, and we'll try to help. You know, sometimes it's difficult to help give as much help as necessary, but they are prepared to get that call and to try to be as helpful as they can be.
Eileen or Joe?
Well, I would certainly agree to call the financial aid office, because when you fill out the financial aid form, we're asking you information about the tax year that just finished. So everything is based on what already happened. But now a disaster strikes, somebody loses their job, or somebody has a medical issue and can't work as much. Financial aid officers have the ability to, instead of using that year that passed, project based on what the reality is now. And with a reduced income, we can look at that and qualify you for additional aid in many cases.
The community college question, good question. The answer is yes. Most public and private institutions work out transfers for community college graduates to come in. It's a major issue in terms of trying to make that transfer as smooth as possible across the country. I don't know about Massachusetts, but the 3 other states that I've been in, community college graduates who go on to 4-year institutions have a higher GPA than the students who began at that 4-year institution. So community college graduates are terrific students who move on to 4-year institutions. And there are many institutions who will work out a smooth transfer.
Kim?
Some community colleges have articulation agreements. I don't know, Jack, maybe if you know, you guys probably have something like that. So if you take
We
a
have
certain...
extensive articulation agreements with community colleges, just make it very smooth for students.
Tell us about that.
Right, so in other words, if you follow a prescribed, they give you, here's the courses you have to take. You take those courses at the community college and you get a certain GPA, you're guaranteed admission to UMass Amherst, for example. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And also some schools like Smith, which is a wonderful college right here in Massachusetts, has a very aggressive program of recruiting students from community colleges. And there's some wonderful scholarships specifically for community college students who move on. There's the Jack Kent Cook Foundation, which has lots of scholarships for trying to reward students who are trying to make that transfer. So there's a lot of opportunity for that.
Dee?
And their graduating degree is going to be from UMass or from Smith. Nowhere does it say, community college on there. So it's a bargain. It truly, truly is a bargain. And we have some fine community colleges in Massachusetts.
We're offering an added advantage to attend today's business breakfast, and that is for your daughter or son. We are streaming this video online, and you can go home and replay that section over and over again
Oh, am I in trouble?
until they're convinced. Okay? That's terrific. Thank you very much. Right over here.
They didn't bleep me.
Yeah, good morning. My question is for Kim. Your article on 6 steps on beating financial aid, is that available?
Yes, just go to usnews.com and search for my name, and that's it.
All right, thank you.
Actually, just Google Kim Clark, and
Google me.
about
Google me, baby.
5,000 articles come up about education. She is an amazing source. Right over here, yes. Just a moment, we'll hear you in a second. Go ahead.
Hi, I have two follow-up questions on what's been discussed. One being what Kim was discussing about getting your student in a bidding war amongst these great colleges and universities. How does that compare to focusing on one and applying for early decision? I'd be interested to see what the panel thinks about that, and also what Jack was discussing earlier. I wonder if he could talk a little bit about the UMass Amherst Honors Program and relate that into public university steps as well as making them a little bit more personalized.
Who wants to go first? Kim?
Right, that's a very interesting question because the research shows that you actually have a much greater chance of getting into a college if you apply early admission. Now, it is possible that one of the reasons schools like to admit early is because then they don't have to give you as much aid. I'm not saying it's true, I'm just saying it's possible that that could be a motivation. So you really have to balance the child's desire to get into that particular college against your ability to compare many offers. So I guess it really depends on your family situation. If you want to ensure that you're getting the maximum amount of aid, I think the best strategy is to apply to lots of colleges during the regular season and then spend April comparing offers and trying to get increased offers.
Can I make
Yes, Joe.
just maybe an outlier on this issue, because we saw this going on a number of years ago when I began at Lesley, and we decided not to participate in the following way. We could not make explicit what our need-based and merit aid was if we engaged in the quiet competition of students applying to multiple institutions. We decided to forego that competition in lieu of being explicit on our website with parents and students about the criteria for our merit and need-based aid. And we think that's a gain in the clarity to our students, because it is not worth being unclear to have $1,000 or $2,000 flexibility on an internal institutional scholarship to play that game. So we're making the stand that we've got to be clear from the beginning and stick with that. And if somebody finds the value at Lesley worth it and sees the difference between price and cost, that's the decision they make. And if they want to go someplace else and engage in that competition, because I think while you're right on that, it is a limited numbers of students who actually gain through that competition. And I think it's inappropriate for a lot of us who are average college students with average kids to think that by engaging in that competition, there's going to be a significant financial gain.
Eileen?
I would agree with Joe. At Stonehill, we have early decision, obviously, as well as regular decision and early action. However, the way we give financial aid for the early decision people is identical to the way we give it for the general population. So we don't have one way of doing it if you're early and one way if you're later. And that's probably true of most colleges. But we do know that there are some colleges who will do exactly as Kim said, and that is to undercut the aid to the early decision because they've obviously have more interest in attending the college and have stated that by virtue of going early decision. So I would think that unless you've spoken to a school and you're certain that their financial aid awards will not be different between those two populations, and finances are very important to you, you may not want to go early decision so that you can have a broad range of financial aid awards from schools that you can make a decision that includes a financial consideration.